The morning of May 13, 1862, dawned gray and silent over Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. The city was a heavily fortified stronghold of the Confederacy, and the Civil War was raging. Tied up at a wharf was the CSS Planter, a lightly armed, side-wheeled steamer serving as a dispatch and transport vessel for the Confederate Army. Aboard the ship, the only people stirring were the 3 enslaved men left to guard her, Robert Smalls, the wheelman, and 2 fellow crew members. The white captain and his 2 mates had decided to spend the night ashore, a lapse in discipline they would regret for the rest of their lives. Robert Smalls, at the age of 23, was a man of extraordinary skill, courage, and quiet determination. Born into slavery in Beaufort, South Carolina, he had been hired out to work in Charleston since his youth, a common practice that nonetheless gave him a wealth of knowledge about the city, its harbor, and its vessels. He knew the Planter, its feel, its sounds, and its secrets, better than any man. Most importantly, he had meticulously memorized the Confederate signals needed to pass the harbor's heavily armed forts. The stakes could not have been higher. Smalls had a plan, one that was audacious to the point of seeming suicidal. His immediate family, his wife Hannah and their 2 young children, Elizabeth and Robert Jr., along with his brother's family and other enslaved people from neighboring properties, a total of 16 people, including 5 women and 3 children, were waiting nervously at a prearranged rendezvous point. If the plan failed, capture meant certain execution for the men and a life of even harsher servitude for the women and children. Yet for all of them, the chance at freedom was a risk worth taking. At 3 a.m., under the cloak of pre-dawn darkness, Smalls gave the signal. The waiting families, silently slipping past the Confederate pickets, were rolled out to the Planter in a small boat. Once aboard, a silence descended over the desperate group. The slightest noise could alert a sentry on a nearby vessel or fort. The men fired up the boilers and cast off the lines. Smalls took the wheel. He steered the Planter slowly and deliberately, heading toward the open sea. As they approached Fort Sumter, the infamous fortress where the first shots of the war had been fired, Smalls knew this was the moment of greatest peril. The fort's guns covered the harbor entrance, and the sentries were always vigilant. He put on the captain's broad-brimmed straw hat and mimicked the captain's mannerisms, including his distinctive way of walking. In the faint, early light, Smalls' darker skin would not have been visible from a distance, and the outline of the man at the wheel, dressed like the captain, was enough to deceive the lookouts. He then executed the series of whistle signals and flag movements that were the day's secret codes. The sentries, seeing the familiar vessel and what they believed was its white captain, accepted the signal and allowed the Planter to pass. It was a bluff of world-changing proportions. As the ship cleared the final Confederate picket, Smalls ordered the Planter's Confederate flag lowered and replaced it with the white sheet, a makeshift flag of surrender. He pushed the engines to full speed and headed toward the Union blockade fleet positioned 5 miles offshore. The Union Navy warship, the USS Onward, stared the approaching steamer. Observing the unusual sight, a Confederate vessel flying a white flag and sailing at high speed, the Union sailors prepared to fire. Before the cannons could unleash the broadside, a Union officer lowered his telescope and exclaimed, "It's a black man with a Confederate ship." Robert Smalls had delivered the Planter, a $60,000 piece of Confederate military property, to the Union fleet. More than that, he had delivered 16 human beings to freedom. The story was an immediate international sensation. It was a staggering blow to the Confederacy and a monumental psychological victory for the Union. Smalls's intelligence about the Charleston defenses was priceless, and his bravery made him a hero to millions in the North, becoming a powerful symbol of Black ingenuity and the fight against slavery.